laptops, computers to handheld devices. And we've made a lot of other improvements as well. But talk to law enforcement, see how they think we're doing on that. Under my watch, we've done quite a lot in the last year and 9 months in law enforcement. Law enforcement gateway that I described. We beefed up our computer crimes unit because we're hearing from local law enforcement that's a need. They don't really have the tools, many of these small, medium-sized departments, to deal with that. I created a human trafficking commission that is looking at the law in the state and enforcing human trafficking, which is an issue that was mostly neglected before. Some of the evangelical churches call it the modern abolitionist movement, and they're very concerned about it. We have added the missing persons portal to the website, which is brand new. We're working on peace officer training. We've made that more accessible by bringing regional trainings around the state. We're putting more of that online. We fixed the break-in service problem, talked to local law enforcement. That kept their officers off the street because every time they changed a job, they had to get recertified, which is crazy. We don't treat any other profession in the state that way. If a nurse leaves a job on Friday and takes a new job on Monday, we don't treat her as all of a sudden not certified. But that's what the law was on peace officers. So there's been a lot of things that we've changed and improved. And again, don't take my word for it, don't take my opponent's word for it. Talk to the leaders in your area, the sheriffs, the police chiefs, and see what they think. I think they think we're doing a good job.
If the voters return you to office, obviously you probably don't want to just rest on your laurels. We've heard about the good improvements that you've made. What is specifically the number 1 or 2 goals that you have from where you are now to where you want to be at the end of the next term?
My objectives would be pretty much the same that I talked about in 2008 in the campaign. The first was restore order and professionalism to the office. I think that we've done that. Of course, you have to maintain it as you go. Something you have to do in public service every day. The support for local law enforcement, where I think we've done a good job, despite the criticisms, which I think are pretty empty and unsubstantiated. We will continue to do that. I'm heading here, I'm going to be late, but for a law enforcement roundtable in Mansfield, we've done 8 or 10 of those around the state. Every time we go, we sit down with police chiefs, sheriffs, their representatives, prosecutors, and we hear from them, and they have more thoughts for us and ideas for things that we can do to be helpful to them. I'm sure that over the next 4 years, they'll have plenty more ideas and thoughts. They're all under tight budgets and challenges there, and they're relying on us more. So there'll be a lot of work to do there. In the area of protecting the financial security of Ohioans, which is the other thing I talked about in 2008, we've worked on and made a priority in my office. That ranges from individual consumer protection issues for individual consumers. We've now added small businesses and nonprofits to the groups that we're able to help, which the Attorney General's office did not do before, to the big cases for our pension systems against some of the biggest Wall Street firms that harmed our pension systems. In some cases, securities fraud, in other cases, other things. We resolved a case against AIG recently for a total of about $1 billion against them and their former executives, Hank Greenberg and his crew. We have a major case pending against Bank of America. I think will be worth more than that. We have a major case against Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, some of the worst culprits of the whole federal problems for crooked accounting. That Fannie Mae has been pretty well established, so they deny it. And Freddie Mac is subprime toxic assets that they did not disclose to the public. We'll continue to pursue those cases. We were involved in the Chrysler and General Motors bankruptcy. A lot of interest in Ohio in those. We ended up deeply involved in those and adjudicating objections to protect our unemployment fund, our workers' comp fund. We're getting environmental remediation money for several of the plants around the state because of the work we did there. Cleveland Hopkins Airport, which is a recent example, the Continental United merger. I chaired the antitrust committee for the National Association of Attorneys General. We launched an investigation working with other states. We were able to get an unusual but strong agreement from Continental protecting the flights out of that airport for the next 2 years at 96% levels, and for the next 3 years, depending on, unless they lose a lot of money there relative to the rest of the system. So I think we've done good work for people in the state, and I think I've been a pro-business attorney general as well. When I enforce the law even-handedly, that supports our law-abiding businesses against the predators, the scammers, the fraudsters who make a living out of cheating people. And interestingly, there's not a single case that my opponent, former Senator DeWine, has ever cited, even though he was challenged to do so, that I brought that he thinks I should not have brought, or that I brought that somehow wrecked the business climate in this state. I think I've been very responsible in how I've handled those things, including when I first took office, Mark Dan had filed this very aggressive public nuisance lawsuit against the paint companies for the lead paint, stuff that was sold decades ago and now turns out to be harmful. And I dismissed that case of my own motion because I thought it was an inappropriate lawsuit. So I think I've worked responsibly for the state, and I hope to continue to do so. And
So I guess the answer to that is continuation of what you've established in the first 21 months.
Yeah, although I would say, you know, I hope we'll continue to build on what we've done. I think our momentum and our accomplishments now are at a faster pace than they were the first few months I was in office, when we were really trying to dig out of a mess. Mm-hmm. And I think that that would continue. So, yeah, my priorities are not different than they were 2 years ago. The work remains, you know, at a pretty high level of volume and importance.
Do you have any concerns about the Southwest AirTran merger and how that might affect air travel in Northeastern Ohio?
I do. I've announced we've launched what we call a preliminary review. We don't want to say that it's a full-scale investigation at this point because I have no idea. Maybe we'll find that that merger is beneficial. But it certainly was a concern to me. AirTran is the largest carrier out of Akron, Canton. I think they have more than half the traffic. Southwest is the second largest carrier out of Hopkins. So, and then it could be effects on Dayton's airport as well, as I understand it. So we're looking at that. If we think that there's issues about reducing competition, raising prices, reducing service, we will investigate it the same way we did Continental United, and we'll try to make sure. You know, air travel is pretty important to economic development anymore in a region. And I got an email the day after we reached that Continental United agreement from a businessman, I've not met him, but in that area, who said thank you because he flew last year over 100,000 miles out of Cleveland Hopkins, and he could not do that if the air service were cut, and he couldn't run his business out of Northern Ohio if he couldn't do that. So the Growth Association up there was very pleased with the work we did, and we will look to protect Akron, Canton if need be. Maybe we'll find that there's no problems. I'm not clear on that yet. It's too early to tell.
I think that was admirable that you worked with the Continental merger, but 3 years is such a short time.
Well, look, we got 2 hard years and then 3 very specific years. There's nothing discretionary about it. The first 2 years, they are keeping 96% of their flights, and we have a contract that provides for specific enforcement if they were to fall short of that. For the next 3 years, it's all off of very specified metrics. It's not just whether they feel like continuing or not. And unless they lose a lot of money at Cleveland Hopkins, or they do much worse than the rest of their system, they're committed for 3 more years. But I don't know of a single agreement anybody's ever reached with an airline where they actually made commitments for years to come, especially in the wake of 9/11 and $150 a barrel oil spike. I thought that was a pretty good result for us. Do you know of any other agreement like that in the United States? I don't. There may have been something in Minneapolis when Delta and Northwest merged, but Cincinnati got no protection, the Northern Kentucky airport, and they were hurt badly in the first year. So what we have is a strong agreement in place that gives people the opportunity to continue to travel out of that airport, and if they do, then the metrics will protect the airport for 5 years. I don't think anybody gives 20-year guarantees in the airline business these days.
We have time for one more.
On the national health
I got more time. Yes.
On the national health care
Yes.
issue, there's a provision in there concerning compelling people to have insurance, to buy insurance. Why is that not unconstitutional?
This one is just a legitimate difference of opinion between Mike DeWine and myself. I'll give you my thinking about it, and of course I'm the one who had to make the judgment because I'm in the office. The argument is that that bill is unconstitutional. Okay, I think that's out of step with 75 years of U.S. Supreme Court precedent, which has said that Congress can legislate on any matter, it's, quote, substantially affecting interstate commerce. I think healthcare clearly does. Okay, the one, originally these lawsuits that were filed by the Florida and Virginia Attorney General were arguing that this is not within Congress's power to even legislate on the matter, or that it violates the 10th Amendment. they pretty much dropped the 10th Amendment claim because that had to do with the Medicaid system, and it's a voluntary system, so it doesn't really make much sense. So the question is, can Congress legislate and address health care? You know, for years, Mike DeWine was in the Congress and the Senate, and they had health care bills that they moved forward with, and nobody thought they were unconstitutional. So this is kind of an interesting notion. But the smaller part of it is...
Well, none of them required anybody to buy insurance or...
Well, actually, a lot of them had some
Yeah.
sort of, in fact, the Massachusetts state thing that passed has an individual mandate. We have individual mandates at state level on car insurance. I mean, it's not an
Yeah.
unusual concept. And why is that? Because in an insurance system, you don't want to have a free rider problem. You don't want to have a whole bunch of people, which is what we have now, 15, 17 million people, who don't pay for health insurance. But when they end up in a car accident or in an emergency situation, they go into the emergency room, they get care, very expensive care, and who pays the bill? You and I and you. It comes into our premiums. So we end up paying for them. So what you're saying is Congress can address health care generally, but it can't address the free rider problem, which is at the core of the problem in the system, which I just don't think is consistent with Congress's authority. But look, I may be right, I may be wrong on that. He may be right, he may be wrong. The cases are going to go forward. They're going to reach a resolution. Either the law will be upheld or it will be struck down. If it's struck down, it will be struck down for the entire country. It doesn't make any difference at this point whether I or he join that lawsuit other than to score points in a discussion like this. It makes no functional difference to the case. So to me, it seems mostly like political posturing. And so I prefer, I've said, to devote my resources to bringing back money for Ohio from the Wall Street firms where we're pursuing them. And you know, none of them are coming out to Ohio and looking to give money to our pension systems. We have to fight them and take that away from them in these court cases. So that's what my priorities have been.
Okay.
Thank you.